Hello, my delicious co-creators. Lilou here. I'm in beautiful Paris with the delicious Byron Katie that is here. You're here in this wonderful city of love. How does this feel?
It feels like a city of love.
Yeah. I want to know what love is for you. I of course, we're going to speak about the suffering in your work. Relationship is a big topic. Last time we spoke about how to kind of end the suffering in our life, but it was a general topic. But here, relationship, whether it's a romantic relationship, whether it's relationship to our parents, to ourselves. I mean, this is something that we're all experiencing, and I would love to get your understanding. You are the author. You're an author, you're a speaker. I'm holding your French book because we're here in French, Aimer ce qui est, which is Love What Is, one of your bestsellers. And so tell us how do you see love?
Well, love is, I see it as our true nature. Mm. And anything we're thinking or believing that goes against our true nature, it takes us out of being connected with that. We lose connection with that. And in the world of people, the way the ego sees it is, and from my perspective, we actually, we don't. It's like personalities don't love, they want something. So if our partner or the people we care about and love, if they don't give us what we want, then we wonder what happened, and it feels like we don't love them anymore. But we do. It's just that what we're thinking and believing that would oppose our hearts, and would oppose our true natures, we lose the awareness in that. So that's why I bring inquiry, so we can notice anything that separates us, disconnects us from the heart. Yeah. From, let's say, from me to all of the things, situations, people, or myself, to identify what I'm thinking and believing in those moments, question it, and immediately we're connected again. Now, it doesn't mean that, it doesn't mean, for example, you have to connect with me. It's, do I connect with you? And if I am holding that connection, then whatever you say and do, I can't oppose it because I'm basically not crazy anymore.
Yeah. And an argument is not possible when the person in front is in such a space of love.
Yes, it's like if someone's arguing with me, then in this state of mind, I'm listening, I'm learning, I'm being expanded, I'm growing, I'm getting more connected, because they're giving me the most important thing they could ever give, and that's what they're thinking and believing and their emotions in the moment. So I'm more connected. And as far as growing and as I listen, they can give me a lot of information that I could use, especially about myself. For example, if someone says, Byron Katie, you did it wrong, then I can, rather than become angry, I can say, specifically tell me where, if there's something you have to teach me. So, and even if I don't say a word, that's what it's like to listen.
And it doesn't hurt in that space, because sometimes, how we're afraid, we can be afraid as human beings to open our heart, to be vulnerable, to go beyond our ego in new territory. But when we allow ourselves to be in that space, actually, we can receive or hear or be with whatever is, or how, we can't get really hurt in that space. But the ego says, you'll get hurt if you go there.
Yeah. but if we are in alignment with our true nature. In other words, if our mind is open, and that's the key, if our mind is open, it doesn't matter how angry or hurt or upset that person is with me. It's like, what are they thinking and believing? And who is thinking and believing that? It's like, for me, if we look at it as property, if someone is very angry at me, that belongs to them. It's not mine. But if I am angry because they're angry, then both of us are in no condition to continue much further. And then eventually the mind kind of shifts, and we're back together as friends. But we continue to recreate that disconnect as long as we don't understand how to deal with with our thoughts about ourselves, others, and the whole human race and the world we live in.
Sometimes we hear that whatever a person says or whenever a person is angry or making judgment or criticism on us, this is really, they're talking about themselves.
Well, they're talking about me, they think, but they're the ones experiencing all of that.
Yeah.
And what I am thinking, believing about what they say to me, I'm responsible for that. But if I am just listening with an open mind, I'm being enlightened all the time. So there's just no downside to a clear mind. And in the experience of that, I keep that connection. And I know, for example, my grandchildren, when they were little, they're so quick to, and they're just so upset and everything. And they notice that, this not a smile on my face, but this connection I have. And they just said, oh, Grandma, basically, you don't get upset with me. You don't get upset for me. You don't get upset with me. And they find people that'll get upset with them. But when they want love and comfort, I'm here. I'm available. Yeah. Or they've learned just to laugh and it just dissipates, goes away. Yeah.
So conflict is not possible with you when you're in this. I mean, are you always in this space? Do you call that even enlightenment, or or you call that awakening, or just beingness? Or
well, I'm awake to the difference between what you're thinking and believing and what I'm thinking and believing, and I really can never know what you're thinking and believing. I hear your words, but what I'm thinking and believing out of this clear experience doesn't cost me my connection with you. So there's no argument that can come from here.
We're sensitive people. I feel you're a sensitive person, and a lot of us are hyper even sensitive. So how can we be with this hypersensitivity and feeling the other person and yet have this clear mind? And, because we feel some things beyond the words, right? There's some things that happen beyond our words. So you're saying you connect with words. So how do you deal with your sensitivity, what you perceive beyond the appearance and your words?
If we hear a word, you perceive it to mean one thing, I perceive it to be another within a conversation. Yeah. So we're not dealing with the same word. We're not hearing it the same way. So two people really are never in the same conversation. It's like no two people have ever met. We're just dealing with our own heads and projecting it onto these other apparent personalities in the world.
Yeah. And so as we're identifying with our thoughts, with these thoughts, and just hearing that, we're disconnected to our sensitivity, to our intuition, to all of that.
Depending on what story we're hooked into. Yeah. It's like he doesn't understand me, he thinks there's something the matter with me, he's so cruel. Well, if I believe those thoughts, I would not like him. And maybe it would eventually blow over. But still, I'm left when he walks into the room. That's a part of what I put on him. But if I have questioned those thoughts, he walks into the room, I meet, let's say it's my husband, I meet him every time I see him for the first time, because there's no history. I'm not putting history on him. In other words, there's no past I'm putting on him. So it's so exciting to live with a new partner every moment. And especially when if we understand our true nature, then we're always living with the perfect person.
Yeah. There is this, it's like living in a 360. It's kind of living fully and always being open to the person showing up in a different light instead of narrowing. Because as relationship continue, like we have history with these people, we have a past. And that's where you're saying the suffering comes from this, like the depression comes from this past. And
well, yes, that's also a part of it. But if Stephen let's say he walks up and he says, "Good morning," there's not even history there. No history. That's what a past is. It's history. So no history, and you just meet this amazing, we'll say, being, and I can see images of a past, but that's not him. Mm-hmm. Let's say we're having lunch together, and I see us at breakfast, but those are images. And are those images real? Can I take them out and feel them, touch them, taste them? No. So that is not reality. That's nothing. So if I put history of breakfast on Stephen at lunch, then I don't know who I'm having lunch with. I'm having lunch with the ghost of the past. Mm-hmm. So, but if even though I'm noticing this and watching this, it's not reality. It's fantasy running through our heads. So I'm just sitting with this new being, and I'm listening, I'm comprehending, I'm connected. Yeah, and it doesn't take two people to connect, it just takes one. And all of you viewers, that would just be you.
Yeah. That's a good news. So how about the unconscious? A lot of people, and I have conversations sometimes with teachers speaking about the unconscious, and we have things stored in there, and sometimes we just have these reactions. So this is what the work is about. Those questions will help to dissolve those, or?
Well, the inquiry that I invite to people, it's like the invitation to bring up that any consciousness that would see anyone or anything in the world as unacceptable, to just invite that consciousness to come up. And we don't even need an invitation, because sooner or later they come up, they judge someone, and there's an argument. So there it is. That's what was unconscious, now conscious. So prayer answered, unconscious, conscious. So put it on paper, and if you write it down on paper, those judgments, those assumptions, then it doesn't move. It's brought into the world, it's solid. So then you can just look at that, the judgment, and just take it through those 4 questions and turn around. In other words, meditate on each assumption, inviting yourself to just sit in, just meditate on, for example, he doesn't care about me. Is it true? Or he's cruel. Is it true? He doesn't love me. Is it true? And just take one of those, whatever it was, and just meditate on it. Is it true?
What do you call meditation? Because there's several people that define it in a different way.
Let's say we're at lunch and Stephen says, I have to break my promise. I can't have lunch with you today. And he just gets up and walks away from the table.
You can't do that to me.
Yeah, so that would be one of the responses that one might have. So let's say I had the thought, he's cold and uncaring. Okay, so what do I mean by meditating? So, okay. You see us at lunch. You saw us at the lunch table as I was talking, right? Yeah. Okay, so anyone hearing this, you see us at lunch, and you've never even been to our home, but that doesn't stop the ego. So you see us at the lunch table, so that's what I'm meditating on. I'm meditating on lunch. Maybe it was 10 years ago that unconscious occurs, or maybe it's just an hour later, or maybe it's at the table. So, okay, so I'm going to meditate on he is cold and uncaring. So he's cold and uncaring. Is it true? Okay. So now I don't have to answer it. I'm going to just watch lunch. I'm going to watch the moment he said that. So he's cold and uncaring. Is it true? Okay. Promised me lunch. Broke his word. I see him getting up. You see all those images? Yeah. And he said what he said. He's cold and uncaring. Is it true? No. I got really connected with what he wants, what he needs, how important it was. I could see his eyes. Uh-huh. I could see his face. I could see his body language. I could see it just the way it was. I couldn't see it then, but I can see it now because I'm meditating on that moment in time. Yeah. Okay, so how do I react? Third question, how do I react? What happens when I believe the thought he's cold and uncaring? I gave him the look. Oh, there was a thing in my, just above my, just like in my ribs here. My shoulder got tight, and as I continued to watch how I reacted when I believed the thought, he's cold and uncaring. Those images show me I'm meditating on a moment in time.
Yeah.
So when I believe it, I see now I believed it and then the emotions.
Yeah.
So it's important that I just sit in those emotions as I meditate on that moment in time and just allow them to allow myself to get in touch with now what I couldn't get in touch then, and respect those emotions.
Yeah. But how do you feel them fully? Do you relive them, or you actually dissociate with?
You do or you don't. I get as close to it as I possibly can. And if I'm angry, or if I was angry, it's not so difficult to get in touch with. Yeah. And that's why people are traumatized. They're in touch. And so they're really attached. So it depends on what level that you experience within the meditation, and we all experience it in our own way. So now I move to the last question, the fourth and last question. So I'm at the table again. I'm meditating on that moment in time. Who would I be in that situation, witnessing me at the table? There's Stephen. He's getting up. He said what he said. Who would I be without the thought he's cold and uncaring? So I'm seeing him again, just like I did earlier with that first question. I see him. Who would I be without the thought I'd be supporting him? I mean, I see he wants to be with me, and he's made a decision, so that shows me it's important to him. So now what I'm seeing is I'm connected. When I'm believing the thought, I'm disconnected. Mm-hmm. Because that's a thought against someone I love. That's against another human being if I don't even know the person. It's against myself, against my nature. So who am I without the thought? I'm connected. With the thought, disconnected. Actually, when you're not connected, you're crazy. I mean, that is not connected, it's not connected. Yeah. So, and I am really familiar with suffering. So a long history of suffering. So I have the difference. One hurts, one doesn't. That's the difference. So we've done the 4 questions, and I just meditate on those opposites. He's cold and uncaring. He's warm and generous. That's the opposite of cold and uncaring. Yeah, he just told me where he's at. He didn't fool me. He didn't try to lie or just leave the table and make some kind of lame excuse. Warm and generous. He doesn't ever hide or pretend. He doesn't sell out and hurry through lunch and try. He just stands up and says it, and I really respect that. Warm and generous. I can see his face now. Yeah. See him. And another opposite, he's cold and uncaring, turned around. In that moment, I was cold and uncaring. So how cold and uncaring was I? Let me test it. I don't know. It's, where I cold and uncaring? Oh no, but it was him. No, okay. Settle down, meditating on that moment. Mm-hmm. And I get still with it. I was cold and uncaring. I didn't care about his. I didn't even begin to even try to connect with what interested him and what would break an arrangement that we had agreed on. It's a lot.
That happens often to women, how we just hold it, and then at some point it overflows, and then it's like, whoop, on the person.
Exactly, like, oh, it's okay, honey, it's okay. And it's like we're using this facade, but it's not okay.
Yeah.
And so whether we used a facade and the work shows us that, or whether the slightest little, whatever it is, how do I react when I believe the thought in that situation with whoever that is in the moment? So that's what I mean by meditate. The work is meditation. It takes stillness, and we don't have to guess at the answers. We just get in touch with that moment in time, and it's shown to us. And a lot of tears can come with that, but it's amazing release. Now let's say I have, like a year later, a month later, or 5 years later, it doesn't matter. I'm sitting at the table with some. We have an agreement. We're going to meet for lunch, and that person stands up and says, I'm sorry, but I have to break the agreement, and I need to leave. And I wonder, why am I so calm? Why is that? And I'm so connected. I mean, I don't get it. I'm supposed to be hurt or angry. I'm supposed to be something. So the work we do today, I call it preventive medicine. So, when we're meditating on something, it shifts our lives just like that, just that 180.
So we can do that at the event or later on or years later or 10, 20 years later. And you're saying if we're doing this work, then in the future, when we re-encounter this event, then we won't have to face the same.
And not only that event, it affects the way we see that person the next time we see them, because we don't have that history. We're not holding that history, attaching that to them when they say hello to us. And also we're not attaching it to other human beings, because we did that work with just one. What I discovered in the work was me. And it brought me connection with my fellow man or my husband or whomever. It goes across the board, the entire human race, because it's this I'm dealing with, not the person. Yeah. Not dealing ever with that person. I'm meditating on what I am thinking and believing about that person in a situation that was hurtful. So that's how to heal relationship. There's only one relationship to heal, and that is the mind's relationship with itself.
You haven't really spoken about the heart, so I'm always curious. You said keep this open mind, but you're not speaking about keeping this open heart. But I guess the heart follows once the mind is open. Is that what you're saying? Or?
When we're connected, the heart is completely open. That is connection. So that's why I say anytime we're angry or not connected with someone, we're not connected with ourselves. So what am I thinking and believing about that person? If I meditate on that, if I question what I'm thinking and believing about that person, I get connected. And not just with that person, but with my fellow man and world.
Yeah, this happens right from the beginning, and when we arrive here on the planet, because for you, this revelation, this way of thinking, and being came quite later. Is this some? How are we born? Are we born with kind of? Are we inherited from maybe other generations too? And
well, if my mother says, Katie, there's something wrong with you. Where's the problem? There is no problem. There's zero problem. No problem. But the moment she says, Katie, there's something wrong with you, and I believe it, that's the moment it hurts. So my mother didn't hurt me. The moment I believed that thought, there's something wrong with me, I hurt me. So if I'm the one that attached to these stories, that created the identity, I am who I believe I to be. So if I begin to question what I believe, like there's something wrong with me, then I'm going back to where I came from. In other words, becoming conscious. because anytime, in a world of suffering, that is the world of the unconscious.
And each time, it's like each time we're going to relive this situation over and over and over again until we question it.
Well, that I can't say. I can say I did. But I invite everyone to know themselves for themselves. And I know if someone says, if I believed what my mother told me, and someone says, you want to go out for ice cream, then somehow I'm being affected. There's something wrong with me. So maybe they just feel sorry for me. That's why they're inviting me. I mean, the last thing that comes to mind is, do I want ice cream? It's all about me, 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 me. But if I understand myself, if someone says, you want to go have ice cream, there's just nothing to it. Do I want the ice cream or not? Yeah. It's just, and who wouldn't I go anywhere with if I were of right mind? Mm. And who wouldn't I tell the truth, yes or no, either way, too, and feel really good about it and connected. I keep using that word, connected, open-hearted and open-minded.
Yeah. You know how a lot of people are growing these days and becoming more and more spiritual, feeling more and more connected, and then the other partner might not be, and then it's like pointing the fingers. Well, he is in the matter. He's not understanding. He's not understanding where I'm at. So how can we? What would be the conversation, or what can we tell ourselves when we're saying like this person is not spiritual?
Well, I mean, in the first place, how would I know that's true? I mean, how spiritual am I, whatever that word means to those people listening, how spiritual am I to see someone else as not spiritual? I mean, that's not very spiritual. So if I believe anything that puts me above or below any human being that's not connected, that's pure ego, and it's not right or wrong. We're just simply a world of believers until we're not.
Yeah. So then we do the work, we question it, and reconnect to see that actually when we're connected, that person is spiritual, we're spiritual, we're all. And that's another label, actually. So.
And we can only know our own mind.
Yeah.
So if you ask me, Katie, are you spiritual? I see, how would I know? How would I know? I would have to compare it to something else. But if I can't compare it with another human being because I can't know. But am I more spiritual than the Byron Katie of my imagination all those years ago? In other words, in the past. By definition, my definition of spirituality is kinder, then yes, definitely. Yeah. And happily and gratefully. Yeah.
And you're experiencing so much more now. I mean, how was your life if you would compare it to before to now?
Well, one heaven, one hell. Yeah. A life of suffering and a life of freedom from suffering. That dramatically opposed. Yeah. That dramatically a shift and opposite.
Yeah. How about sex? How about sexual relationships? I mean, partners, lovemaking, impotency. I mean, all these things that happen in a couple. Libido, not there. I mean, do you have some things to tell us? Because we're in France, we're in Paris. I mean, and all around the world, there is those situations that are difficult, or the attraction is not there anymore, or the man is facing something and feels like he's not empowered anymore. So what would you have to say about this?
Well, what I love about questioning the mind is all of those things fit into life. They fit beautifully into life. That is life. Now, let's say if I'm a male, I'm impotent, then what am I thinking and believing? I mean, in my experience, I experience nothing that is not here to enlighten me. Nothing. So if I'm impotent, am I happy? And if I'm making love with someone, am I happy? Am I connected? But what is it that we're dealing with that we can't overcome when we really come to understand that it's not the world or what we're experiencing that is the cause of suffering. It's what we are thinking and believing about the world and those conditions that are the cause of suffering. So all of life fits into that. And when we're of right mind, what a wonderful world. What a wonderful, amazing life. It's a gift.
There's no limitation to life, to love, to...
No.
Yeah.
No.
Sometimes we speak about unconditional love, but this is just love.
Yes. No opposition, and opposition to nothing. And that's not to say that I wouldn't give an honest no, but that doesn't mean people are going to comply either. So good either way. And I'm cutting that one a little short, but to know our own mind is worth expressing, but I would not expect anyone to hear it, honor it, or understand it, because that's my job. If there in my family, if there is a problem, it doesn't matter if it's a minor problem or a big problem, if there's a problem, I look to myself.
Yeah.
That's where it's solved. And I can't speak for the other people in my family, but if I see a problem in my family, then here it is, right here. So I deal with it from here, and then I'm connected, and then they do what they do. They argue, they fuss, but it's I see it much differently. I see all of us as doing the best we can when we consider what we're thinking and believing. No one's guilty. No one would harm another human being if they were not in a kind of trance, a kind of asleepness.
How do we know then when to end a relationship, when the relationship is not healthy anymore? Like, we could be doing the work, and the other person is not in front, and this is not satisfying anymore at some point?
Well, if we do the work, it doesn't change that other person. It's just, they are who they are, and it's just we see them differently. But I don't do the work so someone will stay with me. I do the work to have a happy life because I'm the one I live with. And I'm the one I wake up with and go to sleep with. I'm the one I bring to breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So that's the relationship with the self. And in that, all relationships are equal to that. But the other person may not see it that way. But my relationship with that person, it's working. It's working for me.
Do you have anything else to say as part of this conversation on relationship that you hear? Because I know how much you're traveling around the world, and here right now you're in Europe, but a lot of people ask you a lot of questions. You bring people up on stage. Is there some other things that you see around relationships that is important to address?
Oh, I think the most important thing is if I have a problem with a relationship, it's my problem, which is really good to know, because if I have the problem, I also have the solution. That problem's in me, which tells me I have to take care of it from inside of me. Now, that's really cool because it doesn't require anyone else to comply or anything. Here I am, just solving that problem for myself inside of me, and the other person doesn't have to change. They might say, I want to come. Let's say if someone I was living with someone that was hurting me, that was, physically hurting me, then I would be very grateful. Like, they hit me, and I feel this sense of gratitude because it shows me who not to live with. Mm-hmm. That is a mind that is reacting out of what they're thinking and believing. So it's not their fault. They're not guilty. And that's not someone that I'm going to live with. I'm of right mind. And I don't have to fix that person. It's not as though they don't know what they did. They're not stupid. That's a beautiful thing about apparent cause and effect. I don't have to teach or preach or belittle people and say, you hit me, like they didn't notice. I mean, it's disrespectful. So just to be aware and live a love-filled life. And if it doesn't feel that way, then I invite people to the work. You know, inquiry is one way, and it's a beautiful way for people who can get still. What I love about the work is we don't need a teacher. We can do it on our own. You know, and we can take it anywhere. You know, it goes everywhere we go. And eventually, if we practice for a while, just sitting in those questions, they wake up inside of us, and the mind just meets them, and it just gets clear. It just dissolves into, like, is it true eventually? And noticing our emotions and the cause of our emotions, and what's real and what's not.
Last question, how do you feel like in relationship to this universe or this lifetime or being here on Earth? You know, how does that feel to you? How big is it?
Well, it's bigger than this, and eventually, you know, there is no Earth, there is no this. It's all imagined, and if you understand the mind, then your imagination is absolutely unlimited in what it can create, because there is no little or big problem that can stop it. When we have a problem, creativity is just stopped, and that flow is cut off. So inquiry works in more ways than we can possibly begin to comprehend or imagine.
Yeah, those questions, I know we can get them from your website, thebyronkatie.com, and then there's the 4 questions there that people can download. Is that right?
Yes, and the everything's free there. We have events that cost money, but anything I have of value is free on thework.com.
And you have lots of YouTube videos, so if you want to see that, there's a lot of them online. Thank you for your great work. Thank you for being in Paris. Thank you for all your books. There's many of them, but I'm holding the one, Aimer ce qui est. Love what is. It's a pleasure to have you here and to see your light. I love how she has those sparkling, twinkling eyes. I love that when my guests have that. Not everybody has that. I could see a lot of joy and connectiveness there. Thank you.
Thank you, Lilou. It's always so much fun to be interviewed by you. I love your questions, and thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to all of you, delicious co-creators who send you so much love from beautiful Paris. See you soon.